The morning sun cast long shadows across the grounds of the Royal Hospital, Chelsea, as Kate Middleton stepped out of her black Range Rover. The anticipation in the air was almost tangible as she made her way toward the entrance of what would become one of the most talked-about events of the year. The Chelsea Flower Show had been running for over a century, but this year held something special that would capture the imagination of millions around the world. Kate's garden, officially named Back to Nature, was more than just a display of beautiful plants and clever landscaping. It represented months of careful planning, countless meetings with designers, and a vision that would soon welcome the most important visitor of all, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The Duchess of Cambridge had thrown herself into this project with the same dedication she brought to all her royal duties, but this felt different. This was personal. Walking through the temporary pathways that wound between the various garden displays, Kate couldn't help but feel a flutter of nerves. She had visited the site dozens of times during its construction, watching as bare earth transformed into something magical. The garden featured a rustic treehouse, a campfire circle, and a waterfall that tumbled gently over carefully arranged rocks. Every element had been chosen to encourage children and families to connect with nature, something Kate believed was desperately needed in an increasingly digital world. The team of gardeners and designers had worked through the night, making final adjustments to ensure everything was perfect. Adam White and Andrew Davies, the landscape architects who had helped bring Kate's vision to life, moved through the space like conductors preparing for a symphony. They checked the height of every fern, adjusted the angle of fallen logs that served as natural seating, and ensured that the moss covering the treehouse steps looked authentically wild. Kate paused beside the woodland den, running her fingers along the smooth bark of a silver birch tree. This particular spot had been inspired by her own childhood memories of building hideouts in the countryside around her family home. She wanted other children to experience that same sense of adventure and discovery that had shaped her love for the outdoors. The Duchess had insisted on including elements that would appeal to all ages, from toddlers who might enjoy splashing in the shallow stream to teenagers who could appreciate the more sophisticated plantings around the garden's edges. Media crews were already setting up their equipment in designated areas, their cameras capturing every angle of the space that would soon host one of the most anticipated royal encounters in recent memory. The excitement was building among the production teams, who understood they were about to witness something truly special. This wasn't just another royal engagement. It was a grandmother meeting her great-grandchildren in a space that embodied everything the royal family stood for regarding conservation and family values. Security personnel moved quietly through the area, their presence barely noticeable but absolutely essential. They had spent weeks studying every pathway, every hiding spot, every possible angle from which the royal party might be photographed. Their job was to ensure that the visit could proceed naturally while maintaining the highest levels of safety and privacy for the royal family. As Kate made her way toward the main entrance of her garden, she spotted familiar faces among the crowd of officials and media representatives. Alan Titchmarsh, the beloved gardening expert and television personality, was adjusting his tie as he prepared for his role as one of the guides who would accompany the royal party. His enthusiasm for the project had been infectious from the very beginning, and his expertise had helped refine many of the garden's features. The Chelsea Flower Show itself buzzed with its usual energy, but there was an added electricity in the air today. Visitors who had come to see the other magnificent displays found themselves drawn toward Kate's garden, sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. The Royal Horticultural Society officials moved with purpose, ensuring that every protocol was in place for the royal visit while trying to maintain the relaxed, family-friendly atmosphere that Kate had specifically requested. Garden designers from around the world had gathered to witness this moment. Many of them had spent years trying to win awards at Chelsea, but they recognized that Kate's garden represented something beyond competition. It was a statement about the importance of outdoor spaces in child development, backed by research from institutions like the Royal Horticultural Society and numerous child psychology experts. The Duchess took a deep breath as she checked her watch. In just a few hours, 3 generations of the royal family would walk through this space together. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis would explore the treehouse, build miniature dams in the stream, and discover the hidden treasures that had been carefully placed throughout the garden. But most importantly, they would share these experiences with their great-grandmother, creating memories that would last a lifetime. The morning continued with final preparations. Gardeners made last-minute adjustments to plant positions, ensuring that everything looked as natural as possible despite the careful choreography required for a royal visit. The goal was to create an environment where genuine interactions could take place, where the formality of royal protocol could give way to the simple joy of children playing outdoors with their family. Kate knew that this garden would only exist for a few weeks before being dismantled and relocated, but she hoped its impact would be lasting. The design would later be recreated at various schools and community centers around the country, extending its reach far beyond the exclusive grounds of the Chelsea Flower Show. This visit with Her Majesty would be the moment that brought national attention to the project, but the real success would be measured in how many children were inspired to spend more time in nature. As the final hour of preparation began, Kate felt a sense of calm settling over her. She had done everything possible to ensure this would be a perfect day for her children and their great-grandmother. The garden was ready, the team was prepared, and soon the most important visitor in the world would arrive to see what they had created together. The distinctive sound of helicopter rotors cutting through the London air announced the arrival of the royal party. Kate straightened her coat and checked her reflection in the window of the nearby pavilion one final time. She had chosen to wear a practical yet elegant outfit that would allow her to move comfortably through the garden while maintaining the appropriate level of formality for greeting Her Majesty. The entire team fell into position as the official motorcade made its way through the gates of the Royal Hospital, Chelsea. Queen Elizabeth II stepped out of her official car with the same dignity and grace that had characterized her public appearances for over 7 decades. At 93 years old, she moved with surprising energy, her keen eyes already scanning the garden that lay before her. She wore a bright blue coat that would stand out beautifully against the green backdrop of Kate's creation, and her famous handbag was positioned perfectly over her left arm. Despite having attended countless garden shows and official openings throughout her reign, there was something different about today that seemed to energize the monarch. Prince William emerged from the second vehicle, followed by 3 excited children who had been talking about this visit for weeks. Prince George, at 6 years old, tried to maintain his composure, but couldn't hide his excitement at finally being able to show his great-grandmother the garden his mother had been working on. Princess Charlotte, 4 years old and full of personality, immediately spotted the treehouse and had to be gently reminded by her father to wait for the formal introductions before exploring. Little Prince Louis, barely 1 year old, was content to be carried by his nanny, taking in all the new sights and sounds with wide, curious eyes. Kate approached Her Majesty with the curtsy that royal protocol required, but the Queen's warm smile immediately set a tone of family intimacy rather than formal ceremony. They had shared many private family moments over the years, but this public setting required a different balance between royal duty and personal relationship. The Queen's first words were not caught by the waiting microphones, but those close enough to hear later reported that she expressed genuine admiration for what Kate had accomplished. The official greeting ceremony was brief but important. Representatives from the Royal Horticultural Society presented Her Majesty with a small bouquet of flowers that had been specially chosen to represent the theme of the garden. Alan Titchmarsh stepped forward to begin his role as guide, explaining the vision behind the space and the research that had informed its design. His natural enthusiasm made the technical aspects of garden design accessible and interesting, even for those who might not consider themselves gardening enthusiasts. As the royal party moved toward the main entrance of the garden, photographers captured every moment while trying to remain unobtrusive. The challenge was to document this historic meeting while preserving the natural interactions that made it special. Kate had worked with the media teams in advance to establish clear boundaries that would allow for good photography while protecting her children's privacy and maintaining the relaxed atmosphere she wanted to create. The Queen's first stop was at an information board that explained the scientific research behind the garden's design. Studies had shown that children who spent regular time in natural environments demonstrated improved mental health, better academic performance, and stronger social skills. Her Majesty listened carefully as Kate explained how each element of the garden had been chosen to encourage different types of play and learning. The monarch's questions were thoughtful and demonstrated her genuine interest in the project's goals. Prince George had been quietly patient during the formal introductions, but his excitement became impossible to contain as they approached the treehouse. His great-grandmother noticed his enthusiasm and encouraged him to lead the way up the specially designed steps that allowed visitors of all ages to access the elevated platform safely. The treehouse had been built with multiple entry points and safety features that weren't immediately obvious, allowing children to feel adventurous while keeping parents comfortable with the level of risk. From the treehouse platform, the Queen could see the entire garden laid out below. Kate pointed out different areas and explained how children might use each space. The fallen logs around the campfire circle weren't just seating, they encouraged balance and coordination. The stream wasn't just decorative, it provided opportunities for hands-on learning about water flow and natural ecosystems. Every element served multiple purposes while maintaining the appearance of a wild, natural space. Princess Charlotte couldn't resist any longer and asked permission to explore the woodland den. Her great-grandmother not only gave permission, but expressed interest in seeing it herself. The den had been constructed using traditional techniques that created a sense of mystery and adventure while remaining completely safe for children. Built into a natural slope and covered with living moss and ferns, it felt like discovering a secret hideout that had always been there. Inside the den, the Queen bent down to Charlotte's level to examine the collection of natural treasures that had been placed there for children to discover. Smooth stones, interesting pieces of bark, unusual seed pods, and other natural objects were arranged in a way that would capture young imaginations. Charlotte proudly showed her great-grandmother each item, explaining what she thought they might be used for or where they might have come from. The waterfall area became the next focus of attention. The sound of gently flowing water created a peaceful background that seemed to calm even the most energetic visitors. Prince George was fascinated by the engineering that made the water cycle through the system, while the Queen appreciated the way the landscape architects had made the feature look completely natural despite the complex mechanics required to operate it safely in a temporary garden. Kate watched her family explore the space she had worked so hard to create, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction as she saw her vision coming to life. The Queen's genuine engagement with each element of the garden validated months of planning and preparation. More importantly, seeing 3 generations of her family enjoying the space together fulfilled the personal goals that had motivated the entire project. The media coverage was capturing exactly what Kate had hoped to achieve. Images of the Queen playing with her great-grandchildren in a natural setting would be seen around the world, promoting the importance of outdoor family time and environmental education. The garden was serving its purpose as both a beautiful space and a powerful symbol of the values the royal family wanted to promote. As they moved toward the stream area, where shallow water flowed over carefully arranged pebbles, even baby Louis became animated, reaching toward the sparkling water from his father's arms. The Queen suggested that it might be safe for him to touch the water, and William carefully positioned his son so he could splash his hands in the gentle current. The resulting photographs would become some of the most treasured images of the entire event. The most magical moment of the visit began when Queen Elizabeth II suggested they all participate in one of the activities that Kate had designed specifically for families. Near the stream, a collection of natural materials had been arranged to allow visitors to build miniature dams and explore how water behaves when its flow is redirected. The Queen, despite wearing her formal coat and good shoes, expressed genuine interest in trying the activity herself. Kate quickly arranged for a small cushion to be placed on one of the log seats, allowing Her Majesty to position herself comfortably beside the water feature. Prince George immediately positioned himself next to his great-grandmother, eager to show her the techniques he had learned during previous visits to the garden. Princess Charlotte took up a spot on the other side, and together the 3 generations began selecting stones and small pieces of wood to construct their dam. The sight of the reigning monarch of the United Kingdom sitting beside a stream, carefully placing pebbles while her great-grandchildren offered advice and assistance, created a scene that perfectly captured the garden's intended purpose. This wasn't just a photo opportunity. It was a genuine moment of family connection taking place in a setting designed to facilitate exactly this type of interaction. Prince William positioned himself strategically to help manage Prince Louis while also being available to assist with the dam building project. His role as both father and future king required him to balance multiple responsibilities, but the relaxed setting allowed him to focus primarily on his family rather than royal protocols. The nannies and security personnel remained nearby, but unobtrusive, allowing the family to interact naturally while maintaining appropriate safety measures. Alan Titchmarsh provided gentle commentary for the assembled media, explaining the educational value of the activity while being careful not to interrupt the family's interactions. His expertise helped viewers understand how simple activities like dam building could teach children about engineering principles, environmental science, and problem-solving skills. The activity also demonstrated how multiple generations could learn together, with each person contributing different perspectives and abilities. The Queen's approach to the dam building project reflected the methodical thinking that had served her well throughout her reign. She carefully observed the water flow before making her first placement, then asked Prince George to explain his strategy for redirecting the stream. Her questions weren't just polite interest. They demonstrated genuine curiosity about how the activity worked and what the children were learning from it. Princess Charlotte's contribution to the project showcased her developing personality and confidence. She wasn't content to simply follow instructions, but wanted to experiment with different approaches and see how various materials affected the water flow. Her great-grandmother encouraged this experimentation, suggesting alternative placements and celebrating when Charlotte's ideas produced interesting results. The technical crew capturing the event worked carefully to document these interactions without interfering with them. The challenge was to obtain the footage and photographs that would tell the story of the visit while preserving the authentic family dynamics that made the moment special. Multiple camera angles allowed for comprehensive coverage, while individual crew members remained far enough away to avoid disrupting the natural flow of conversation and activity. As their dam began to take shape, the water started backing up behind their construction, creating a small pool that reflected the afternoon sunlight. Prince George expressed amazement at how their simple structure could change the entire behavior of the stream. The Queen used this moment as a teaching opportunity, explaining how engineers use similar principles when designing much larger water management systems. The conversation that developed around the dam building activity revealed insights into each family member's personality and interests. Prince George's questions showed his developing interest in how things work, while Princess Charlotte's suggestions demonstrated her creative problem-solving approach. The Queen's responses revealed her extensive knowledge of engineering and environmental management, topics she had encountered frequently during her decades of public service. Kate watched these interactions with deep satisfaction, knowing that her garden was fulfilling its primary purpose of bringing families together in meaningful ways. The research that had informed the garden's design had predicted exactly these types of learning opportunities and family bonding moments. Seeing them happen with her own family, including her children's great-grandmother, validated every hour of planning and preparation that had gone into the project. The dam building activity naturally led to discussions about water conservation and environmental stewardship, topics that were increasingly important to the royal family. The Queen had witnessed dramatic changes in environmental awareness throughout her reign, and she was interested in how these concepts were being taught to the newest generation. Kate explained how the garden incorporated sustainable design principles and how similar spaces could be created using local materials and native plants. Security personnel remained alert throughout the activity, but the garden's design made their job easier by providing clear sight lines and controlled access points while maintaining a natural, unstructured feeling. The careful planning that had gone into the space allowed for genuine spontaneity within a framework of appropriate safety measures. As the dam project neared completion, Prince Louis became increasingly interested in the water, reaching toward it from his father's arms and babbling excitedly at the sparkles created by sunlight on the moving surface. The Queen suggested that it might be safe for the baby to touch the water directly, leading to a delightful moment where William carefully held his youngest son's hand as he splashed in the shallow stream. The media coverage of this portion of the visit would later be described as capturing the essence of what made the royal family relatable and beloved by the public. The images of 4 generations working together on a simple but engaging project demonstrated that, despite their unique circumstances and responsibilities, they were still a family that valued the same kinds of experiences that mattered to families everywhere. The success of the dam building activity led naturally into exploration of other areas of the garden. The Queen expressed particular interest in the plant selections that Kate and her team had made, noting species that would thrive in British gardens and asking thoughtful questions about maintenance requirements for families who might want to recreate similar spaces at home. The exploration of the garden's botanical elements revealed another layer of thoughtful design that impressed even the experienced queen, who had overseen countless garden projects throughout her reign. Kate had worked closely with horticultural experts to ensure that every plant in the space served multiple purposes while contributing to a cohesive natural environment. The selection included species that would provide year-round interest, support local wildlife, and offer opportunities for children to learn about plant life cycles and ecological relationships. Her Majesty paused beside a grove of silver birch trees that formed a natural corridor leading deeper into the garden. These trees had been chosen not just for their beauty, but for their ability to create the kind of dappled light that makes outdoor spaces feel magical to children. The Queen's keen eye noticed immediately that the plantings beneath the trees included species that would naturalize and spread, creating an evolving landscape that would become more interesting over time, rather than requiring constant maintenance to preserve its appearance. Princess Charlotte became fascinated by a patch of wild strawberries that had been incorporated into the ground-level plantings. Kate explained that these weren't just decorative, but would actually produce small, edible fruits that children could discover and taste. The Queen smiled at this detail, remembering similar discoveries from her own childhood explorations of the gardens at Windsor and Sandringham. She encouraged Charlotte to look carefully for the tiny white flowers that would eventually become the strawberries. The educational potential of the plant selections became a significant focus of conversation as they moved through different areas of the garden. Kate pointed out herbs that children could safely touch and smell, explaining how each one could be used in cooking or traditional remedies. The Queen's extensive knowledge of medicinal plants, developed through years of interest in homeopathy and natural remedies, made her an engaged participant in these discussions. Prince George discovered a section where different types of moss had been encouraged to grow over logs and rocks, creating a miniature landscape that looked like something from a fairy tale. His great-grandmother explained how moss indicated healthy air quality and how these simple plants played important roles in forest ecosystems. Her ability to make complex scientific concepts accessible to a 6-year-old demonstrated the teaching skills that had made her such an effective communicator throughout her public life. The sensory aspects of the garden design became increasingly apparent as they spent more time in the space. Kate had specifically included plants with interesting textures, from the soft, fuzzy leaves of lamb's ear to the rough bark of oak saplings. The Queen tested several of these herself, understanding how tactile experiences could enhance learning and memory formation for children of all ages. A collection of native wildflowers had been planted in what appeared to be a completely natural meadow area, but Kate explained the careful planning required to achieve this seemingly spontaneous effect. The flower selection had been timed to provide blooms throughout the growing season, ensuring that children would always find something interesting no matter when they visited. The Queen particularly admired the inclusion of flowers that would attract butterflies and beneficial insects, noting how this created opportunities for children to observe wildlife up close. The garden's design incorporated subtle educational elements that became apparent only through careful observation. Stones had been arranged to create natural seating areas while also demonstrating geological concepts. Different soil types were visible in cross-section where the stream had been constructed, showing children how plant roots interacted with their growing medium. These features served the dual purpose of supporting the garden's educational goals while maintaining its natural appearance. Prince William found himself drawn into a discussion with his grandmother about sustainable gardening practices that could be implemented on the royal estates. The Queen's personal interest in organic farming and environmental conservation had been growing throughout her later years, and she was curious about how the principles demonstrated in Kate's garden might be applied on a larger scale. Kate had anticipated this interest and was prepared to discuss how the project might influence future royal garden design. The visit had been planned to last approximately 45 minutes, but the Queen's genuine engagement with the space and its concepts was extending the timeline naturally. Her questions and observations demonstrated that this was far more than a ceremonial appearance. She was truly interested in understanding how the garden worked and why it had been designed as it had. This authentic curiosity created opportunities for deeper conversations than had been originally planned. Princess Charlotte's energy level remained high throughout the extended visit, and she continued to discover new details in areas they had already explored. Her great-grandmother encouraged this thorough investigation, understanding that children often needed multiple exposures to fully appreciate complex environments. The garden's design supported this kind of repeated exploration by incorporating elements that would reveal themselves gradually rather than overwhelming visitors with too much stimulation at once. The media coverage was capturing not just the visible interactions, but also the underlying educational philosophy that informed the entire project. Kate's explanations of design choices and plant selections were being recorded for later use in educational materials that would help other families create similar experiences in their own outdoor spaces. The Queen's engagement with these concepts added authority and credibility to the project's educational goals. Security protocols required periodic position adjustments for the royal party, but these movements were being managed so smoothly that they didn't interrupt the natural flow of exploration and conversation. The garden's pathways had been designed to accommodate these requirements while maintaining clear sight lines and safe positioning for all participants. This careful planning allowed the family to focus on their interactions rather than logistical concerns. As they approached the final section of the garden tour, the Queen expressed particular interest in how the design principles could be adapted for different climates and growing conditions. Kate explained that the team had specifically chosen techniques and materials that could be modified for use throughout the United Kingdom and even in other countries with similar environments. This adaptability was crucial to the project's long-term goals of influencing garden design and family outdoor activities on a much broader scale. The afternoon light was beginning to change, creating new patterns of shadow and illumination throughout the garden that highlighted different aspects of the design. The Queen noticed these changes and commented on how the garden would offer different experiences depending on the time of day and season when families visited. This observation led to discussions about how natural environments provide constantly changing learning opportunities that can't be replicated in indoor settings. The conclusion of the royal visit approached with a special ceremony that Kate had planned to mark the significance of the occasion. A commemorative tree planting had been arranged near the garden's main entrance, where a young oak sapling waited to be officially planted by Her Majesty. This tradition of marking important visits with tree plantings held deep meaning for the royal family, connecting the present moment to future generations who would benefit from the growing tree's presence. Queen Elizabeth II had participated in countless tree planting ceremonies throughout her reign, but this one carried particular significance because of its connection to her great-grandchildren's future. The oak had been chosen specifically for its longevity and its importance to British wildlife, representing the kind of long-term thinking that characterized both the Queen's approach to her responsibilities and Kate's vision for environmental education. The tree would eventually grow to provide habitat for numerous species, while serving as a living reminder of this special day. Prince George was invited to assist his great-grandmother with the ceremonial first shovelfuls of soil. He approached the task with the seriousness that the occasion demanded, carefully positioning the small spade and waiting for guidance from both his mother and the Queen. The symbolism of 4 generations working together to plant something that would outlive them all created a powerful visual representation of continuity and environmental stewardship. The ceremony was attended by representatives from various organizations that had contributed to the garden's development, including the Royal Horticultural Society, leading landscape architects, and child development experts who had provided research support for the project. Their presence acknowledged that this garden represented more than just a royal initiative. It was the result of collaborative effort between multiple institutions committed to improving children's relationships with nature. As the final soil was placed around the oak sapling and water was carefully applied to settle the roots, the Queen offered her official assessment of the garden project. Her words would be quoted extensively in the media coverage that followed, lending royal authority to the educational principles that the garden embodied. She specifically praised the way the design balanced structured learning opportunities with free play, noting that this combination reflected the best current understanding of child development. Princess Charlotte remained engaged throughout the tree planting ceremony, asking questions about how long it would take for the oak to grow large enough to climb, and whether birds would build nests in its branches. Her great-grandmother's patient answers demonstrated the teaching approach that had made the entire visit so successful, treating the child's questions as important contributions to the conversation rather than interruptions to be managed. The official photographs taken during the tree planting would become historic documents, capturing a moment when royal tradition, environmental advocacy, and family relationships intersected in a meaningful way. The images showed 4 generations united around a common purpose, working together to create something that would benefit countless future visitors to the space where the tree would eventually grow. As the ceremonial activities concluded, the Queen took a final walk through the garden with Kate, engaging in a private conversation that wasn't captured by the waiting media. Those close enough to observe later reported that Her Majesty offered specific suggestions for how the garden's concepts might be incorporated into the educational programs already operating on the royal estates. Her practical interest in extending the project's influence demonstrated her understanding of its potential impact. The departure preparations began with the same careful coordination that had characterized the entire visit, but the atmosphere remained relaxed and family-focused rather than strictly ceremonial. Prince Louis had fallen asleep in his father's arms during the tree-planting ceremony, creating touching images of the baby surrounded by the garden environment that would influence his childhood development in ways both obvious and subtle. Prince William expressed his personal gratitude to the team that had made the garden possible, understanding that his wife's vision had been brought to life through the expertise and dedication of numerous professionals. His comments to the media emphasized how the project represented the kind of collaborative approach that would be necessary to address environmental challenges facing future generations. The Queen's final comments about the visit focused on the importance of providing children with opportunities to develop personal relationships with nature. Her observations drew from decades of experience watching environmental awareness evolve from a specialized interest to a mainstream concern that would define policy decisions for generations to come. She positioned Kate's garden as an example of how traditional values could be preserved while adapting to contemporary understanding of child development and environmental education. As the royal party prepared to leave, Kate took a moment to observe the garden one final time, knowing that this visit had marked the successful completion of a project that had consumed months of her life. The sight of gardening tools that had been used by 4 generations of her family, soil that still bore the impressions of small hands and royal shoes, and plants that would continue growing long after the temporary installation was dismantled, created a sense of accomplishment that went far beyond public recognition. The media teams began the process of reviewing and editing the extensive footage and photographs they had captured, understanding that their work would help carry the garden's message to audiences around the world. The images of royal family members engaging authentically with nature would be used to promote similar projects and encourage families everywhere to prioritize outdoor experiences for their children. The garden's impact extended far beyond the boundaries of the Chelsea Flower Show grounds. Educational institutions, community organizations, and families around the world would study the design principles and adapt them for their own outdoor spaces. The royal endorsement provided by Her Majesty's visit would open doors for funding and support that might not have been available to a less prominent project. As the official vehicles departed the Royal Hospital, Chelsea, Kate remained behind for final meetings with the project team. Plans were already underway to relocate elements of the garden to schools and community centers where they would continue serving their educational purpose for years to come. The temporary nature of the Chelsea installation had always been planned as just the beginning of a much larger initiative. The success of the royal visit validated Kate's belief that environmental education and family outdoor time deserved prominent places on the national agenda. The Queen's enthusiastic participation demonstrated that these concerns transcended generational and political boundaries, representing fundamental values that could unite people around common goals. The garden had provided a perfect setting for this message, creating beautiful and memorable images while advancing important conversations about childhood development and environmental stewardship. The legacy of this day would extend through multiple channels, from policy discussions influenced by the royal family's environmental advocacy to individual families inspired to spend more time exploring nature together. The careful documentation of every aspect of the visit ensured that the garden's lessons would be preserved and shared long after the physical installation had been relocated and transformed into new educational opportunities around the country.